Hello, my name is Bill Malone, and this is my Human Performance Technology presentation. I would like to discuss the impact that HPT has on instructional technology during a global crisis, and specifically using an online educational learning environment as an intervention during the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 had a dramatic impact on students and faculty performance, making it virtually impossible for the educational process to continue without some form of intervention. When classrooms and other training environments were made unavailable due to the crisis, the emergency remote teaching and learning format was enacted as an intervention strategy to help close the academic gap brought on by the global emergency. Remote teaching and learning is not directly considered online learning, but a specifically designed instructional environment created as an intervention for emergency remote instruction during times of crisis. This presentation will discuss the flexibility and interdisciplinary nature that is associated with human performance technology, which will allow it to use other fields to pave the way for an online learning environment to become a defense against stopping educational continuity during global crisis. It has been widely accepted that the COVID-19 global pandemic has brought about dramatic and potentially long-term changes to the training and educational process that can potentially impact the methods of instruction for students, educators, and trainers for some time to come. Technology advances in distance education and e-learning were forced to improve during the global crisis to offer students a viable alternative to their traditional classrooms, which were no longer available in many cases. This presentation was designed for educators who were interested in gaining a better understanding of HPT and the emergency remote training and learning strategies that were employed to allow educational continuity during the global crisis. Here are the list of terminal and enabling objectives for this discussion. The terminal objective will be, by the end of today's session, educators will be able to discuss the importance of human performance technology during the COVID-19 global pandemic with their fellow teachers and administrators. Enabling objectives will include the ability to define human performance technology, list the 5 phases of the HPT model, explain the importance of the emergency remote teaching and learning strategies, discuss the 5 standards of HPT, as well as list advantages of e-learning as an emergency intervention during global crisis. And finally, they will be able to discuss transitioning from traditional classroom instruction to online learning environments. Many educators who had mastered the art of chalkboards and lecterns in the traditional classrooms are now being tasked with accepting new and ever-changing guidelines within an online instructional environment that utilizes digital media, online technologies, and an increased dependence on the internet to help bridge the gaps in human performance brought on by the global pandemic and the closures of classrooms and other training environments around the world. During this trying times of global crisis, where traditional teacher-centered classrooms are again closed and unavailable to most students and teachers, the use of human performance technology strategies have allowed educators and trainers to swiftly shift to an online learning environment to close otherwise insurmountable gaps in the educational process for teachers and students who were no longer have had access to the normal methods of instruction. The question begs to be asked, how are students and teachers expected to perform at their best, accomplish their academic goals, meet the minimum standards of performance when schools and training facilities around the world are closed and traditional forms of instruction have been shut off to them due to global crisis? Here we see the need for human performance intervention. Cho 2017 points out that any effort to close performance gaps in the educational process require multiple disciplines to work together to accomplish common goals. Also, it is important to recognize that human performance technology, learning sciences, instructional design, human resources management, and human resources development all share common goals with instructional technology as it relates to learning and performance in a variety of circumstances, and all center on the value of people as a means of improving organizational performance through innovation, development, and learning. Those points of convergence, or those convergences of purpose for these fields, are a clear focus on the educational process and the development of academic systems, using available resources to improve and meet organizational needs, a willingness to use and implement an interdisciplinary perspective, and a willingness to use technology for human performance improvement and learning. In a time of global crisis, where traditional teacher-centered classroom instruction becomes unavailable to most students, human performance technologies allow educators and trainers to use online technologies to close otherwise insurmountable gaps in the educational process. The online learning environment has become an integral component of the interventions needed to bridge many of the lapses in performance that have occurred in the educational and training processes during the times of crisis. Kamsebayevova et al. 2021 state that it can be reasonable to expect telework, e-learning, online collaboration, and an overall increase in internet usage to play a significant role in any effort to improve and maintain student and employee performance during global crisis. And while it is true that human performance technology and instructional technology can be applied to a wide variety of learning environments, current events have moved performance improvement for distance and e-learning to an entirely new level of importance. Jelinska and Paradowski 2021 warned that some of these interventions may also have a long-term impact on the educational and training process, and that in a post-pandemic world, educational instruction, educators and students can expect to see an increased usage in blended instruction, integrating conventional face-to-face instruction alongside online learning technologies. Performance sits at the very heart of human performance technology and specifically refers to the function of accomplishments and behaviors gained by interventions employed to resolve an identified issue or problem. In this case, behavior refers to activity, while the term accomplishments refer to the results achieved by those activities. That's according to Carliner 2014. Human performance technology specifically speaks to the methodology for the development interventions to address performance gaps or issues in organization or individuals. Specifically, HPT is, and this is according to King and Melinda 2018, a systematic process of discovering and analyzing important human performance gaps, planning for future improvement in human performance, designing and developing cost-effective and ethically justifiable interventions to close performance gaps, implementing the interventions, and evaluating the financial and non-financial results. The three fundamental processes associated with HPT are performance analysis, cause analysis, and intervention selection. Each of these can be applied to business settings, instructional institutions, and even individuals. The definition of human performance technology reveals its systematic perspective and focus on results and outcomes. The HPT model is composed of 5 phases. Phase 1, performance analysis of needs or opportunities. Phase 2, cause analysis. Phase 3, intervention and selection, design and development. Phase 4, intervention implementation and change management. And Phase 4, evaluation and continuous improvements. Intervention is a term used in HPT when referring to a solution to a previously identified problem or issue. Any intervention selection will fall within one of these 5 phases and categories associated with HTP, as developed by the International Society of Performance Improvement and HTP models. And this, of course, is from Carliner 2024 or 2014. During the COVID-19 global crisis, classrooms were empty. Instruction had slowed or come to a complete stop. It became paramount for HTP professionals to assess the emerging performance gaps in the educational process that many schools and businesses were facing because of these closures, and swiftly shift to offering instructional material in an online distance learning environment. Pace et al. 2020 referred to this form of crisis teaching as quaranteaching, and implied directly that if teachers wanted to have a positive impact on the performance of their students in this new learning environment, they needed to gain a better understanding of digital media and prepare to make strategic adjustments throughout the learning process.
Baseline survey conducted by the Karnataka Education Department has in fact found out that 35 to 50% of the government school students that are in classes 1 to 3rd have had a learning loss owing to the prolonged shutdown of schools during the pandemic. The study also found that less than 50% of the students attained age-appropriate competencies in mathematics and language skills.
In March of 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 to be a global pandemic, and the majority of traditional classrooms and training activities were suspended before the completion of the academic year for many students. Due to school closures and an inability to participate in instructional activities, academic performance was significantly affected. The cause of the drop in student performance was easily identified, and the need to enact an intervention strategy that addressed the gaps in the educational process that could offer a systematic view capable of not only addressing performance issues, but also taking into account any other variable and influence that might be generated from the global crisis. It is important to note that because of the abrupt changes in the instructional environment and insufficient training in online teaching methodologies, teachers faced stress and workload issues that impacted their performance as well. That's according to Chan et al. 2021. The COVID-19 global crisis impacted the performance of the majority of the human components within the educational process. The cause of the gaps of academic performance and the need for HTP intervention are well established and easily identified. It is at this point that an HTP design solution needed to be implemented that did not involve face-to-face interaction while simultaneously allowing both teachers and students the ability to quickly transition from their established learning environment to a new academic setting that met the urgent needs brought on by the crisis. This is an important point. HTP is not limited to any specific technology or solution, offering it the needed flexibility to find the most prudent resolution available that could help improve the students and teacher performance issues brought on by the global pandemic. And this is according to Kang and Melinda 2018. The COVID-19 global epidemic brought about what Asham 2021 referred to as a revolutionary shift from the traditional face-to-face form of instruction to an emergency remote teaching and learning format. This was later renamed to Remote Teaching and Learning Format, but this strategic intervention took on the form of online instruction and e-learning strategies. Okay, while there is little debate that the usage of distance and e-learning instructional environment predates the COVID-19 epidemic, the closure of classrooms and other training environments around the world made online instruction the primary and in many cases only viable option for many students that were interested in completing their education or training goals. During this time of crisis, the percentage of students who were actively engaged in participating in online e-learning environments increased significantly at every academic and training level, according to Asham 2021. It should be noted that according to Asham 2021, the remote teaching and learning strategy is not directly perceived to be online learning, but is a specifically designed intervention strategy that was created for emergency remote instruction and usage. RTL is the creation of an online instructional environment developed specifically to resolve both individual and organizational problems associated with global crisis. This urgent shift in technology associated with the usage of an online learning environment is only meant to be a temporary adjustment from the delivery methods employed within traditional teacher-centered classroom settings that are no longer available during global crisis, according to Asham 2021. The human elements within the educational system were dramatically affected and unable to perform within the established organizational structure, creating the need for the creation of an emergency intervention and environment. The International Society for Performance Improvement, also referred to as ISPI, established 10 standards for human performance technology as a way to better assess practitioner competency and knowledge. These standards allow all HPT professionals to function under the same set of guidelines as they implement interventions to resolve issues that affect human performance. The 10 standards for HTP are: they must all maintain focus on results or outcome, take a systematic view, add value, establish partnerships with clients, determine needs or opportunities, determine costs, design solutions including implementation and evaluation, ensure solutions conformity and feasibility, implement solutions, evaluate results and impact. And this is, of course, according to Horde and Stefanik 2016. These standards remind HPT professionals that any intervention applied must also add value in a way that genuinely impacts performance while simultaneously taking into account any other issues that should be considered, such as intervention sustainability and cost to the organization. It is also expected that HPT professionals only initiate interventions that are effective in resolving the established issue or problem. In this case, the decision to use remote teaching and learning as an HPT intervention falls under the category of instructional support and organizational design development in phase 3 of the HPT model. In an effort to evaluate the effectiveness of online learning being applied as an intervention to past crisis situations, it is important to note that in addition to COVID-19, distance learning has been used as an intervention tool to help maintain K-12 instructional continuity during past global crises. In the previous events, educational technology itself was limited, and the telephone was used as a tool to access instructional material during the Spanish flu pandemic. Another example would be the New Zealand polio epidemic, which used educational radio and correspondence as a means of providing instruction to students when their classrooms were no longer available. In the early 2000s, the H1N1 and SARS outbreak overtook China, Hong Kong, Bolivia, Singapore, and Canada, causing them all to use e-learning environments to meet the academic needs of their students. This is according to Ashan 2021. It is clear from these examples that the levels of available educational technology and the communication infrastructures have dramatically impacted on the degree in which each specific implementation of distance learning can be applied as an intervention during a crisis. Some of the specific advantages associated with applying the e-learning environment as an emergency intervention during a time of crisis include, but are not limited to, the ability to remotely access instruction and any other educational material, the ability to attend as well as actively participate in courses from just about anywhere, the freedom to work at and complete course materials at your own pace. In addition to these specific benefits, when an online course is conducted in an asynchronous format, students also possess the freedom to revisit instructional and course materials if additional review is needed. Mayo et al. 2016 stated that educational technology is frequently associated with or even used interchangeably with information communication technology, ICT, or new emerging digital media, which indicates an oversimplified definition with a narrow focus on technology as a tool. Education technology is becoming more and more effective and continues to transform the academic landscape. As stated previously, remote teaching and learning was only meant to be used as a temporary intervention that could be employed when crisis conditions hindered normal academic performance, according to Ashan 2021. For this transitional intervention to be successful in its efforts to improve student performance during the global pandemic, it is important to take into account that online learning can only translate into a benefit for teachers and students if they have a favorable attitude toward the e-learning format, and that is according to Poonjari and Mahadevan. Because the requirements associated with the implementation of this intervention were employed in such an urgent and sudden manner, Poonjani and Mahadevan 2022 recommend that there also be an increase in faculty-student online interaction in an effort to improve online communication skills of both faculty and students. They also propose that the use of this intervention will improve the overall attitude and perception of the benefits of using this e-learning format. Additionally, their level of proficiency with computers, internet usage, and online communication will have an impact in the success of this intervention. These authors also recommend that there be an increase in training for educators and students who are interested in learning more about how to effectively use this distance learning format. For this intervention to be effective, educators must be willing to accept the challenges and responsibilities of developing instructional material that will be better suited for use in an e-learning format, as well as creating methods of assessment of student performance in the online educational environment. Educators will also be expected to improve their own skills and levels of expertise in regards to providing online instruction for their students. Youth performance technology is not a one-size-fits-all strategy, but a methodology that allows designers and HPT professionals who are focused on individual and organizational performance outcomes to use strategies from a variety of disciplines. The use of remote training and learning represents a dramatic shift from traditional classroom instruction to an emergency teaching format, which is a temporary online learning environment specifically designed to be an intervention for usage during times of crisis or turmoil. The roots of HTP can be found in the fields of educational technology, which is also perceived to be an interdisciplinary field, whose roots derived from fields such as cybernetics, communication theory, and cognitive psychology. That is according to Carlinier 2014. The interdisciplinary nature and flexibility associated with human performance technology has allowed this field to pave the way for online learning to not only become available as a tool for lifelong learners or students in pursuit of academic advancement, but present itself as a last line of defense in providing performance security as it helps maintain educational continuity to students when a global crisis closes all other avenues of instruction. Human performance technology is a field that is devoted to helping individuals as well as organizations overcome obstacles that may impede optimal performance. COVID-19 became a worldwide obstacle to students and educators as they work to achieve success and optimal performance in their traditional instructional environments. The traditional classrooms and training centers, which were once considered an invaluable tool for instruction, were closed due to the fear of spreading a potentially deadly virus. The swift transition and development of an emergency online environment was the most effective, cost-effective, proficient intervention available to close the gap in academic performance and continuity. This concludes today's session on human performance technology and the emergency remote teaching and learning strategies during the COVID-19 global pandemic. I hope that you gained a greater insight into HPT and intervention strategies designed to close the academic performance gaps during times of global crisis. Thank you for your participation and attention.